What's up GRP? This is a random video for me, but I've been wanting to do some UFC for a while. For anyone that watches the show, you guys know that obviously the GRP, we are both actors, or all three of us are actors and also athletes, martial artists. In Leon's case, also a MC and a rapper. In my case, musician. Larry's case, sports aficionado, sprinter, professional boxer, the whole gamut. We like our martial arts. And reviewing the UFC or getting into some UFC news has been something I've been trying to do for the channel, and I'm going to start doing now. So this is a very, very quick forte into that. And I want to talk about two things. Number one, I'm going to very, very quickly touch on what was an amazing performance by Barboza last night. I was absolutely in shock. Well, not in shock because I knew he could do it, but after the barrage of punishment that Barboza took at the age of 37, in the opening round of that fight, I was a bit worried, but part of me was like, because I watched a repeat of it this morning. I didn't watch it live last night because I'm in the UK and I ain't staying up till 3 in the morning anymore. I'm old, but I watched a repeat of it on MMA course. I have my fingers crossed for him, and he bit down the mouth guard, came back in second round, starting to work the body a little bit. By the third round, he does his absolute clinical precision masterpiece display of a spinning hook kick from Taekwondo and landed it. I can't remember last time he didn't land that kick. Like when it calls for it in big moments. I mean, he even landed it with Khabib, and I mean, Khabib ate it on the guard. It didn't catch him flush, but it was one of those ones where he caught Yusuf last night, and he even slipped. His weight went off a little bit, but he still caught him flush of it, and that turned the fight. He carried on working the body a lot more, and this is the thing when people kind of go, oh, but look at the damage on Barboza's face. That was from the first round. He weathered that, and my props to Herb Dean for letting the fight continue, because some refs might have jumped in at that point, but he let Barboza try and go out, and he shielded, and luckily enough he didn't go out. He stayed in, and then by the third round, after he caught that wheel kick, the tide started to turn, and we saw Barboza get back on the horse and just work the body, and it's it's one of those things that you hear a lot, and it's like, put money in the bank for, whatever the term is, but, water in the basement. And he was just starting to work Yusuf down, tire him down to the point that Yusuf started to fade. I mean, he was still in the fight. By the fifth round, Yusuf started to fade down. And for a young prospect, up-and-coming prospect, to fight a 37-year-old Barboza, and that was a result, that just tells you the caliber of warrior that Barboza is. Also the caliber of warrior Yusuf was in instead of for 5 rounds of him. But he's my top 5 MMA fighter of all time. Just because striking is my thing, and if anyone has seen a video of me mucking about with Darren Stewart, we'll talk about in a second as well, ex-middleweight UFC guy, screwing about with the bottle cap challenge. That's my favourite kick. I love the spinning wheel kick. I love the spinning hook kick. They're two of my favourite techniques, and I will practice those day in and day out every day, even after hip surgery. I do it all the damn time. It's my favourite technique to do. To see him catch it when he had his face turned into pulp was just a beautiful thing. It was just such a display of heart, and it just shows you the work. And then to get the takedown in the 5th round, and it wasn't even like it was, a desperation takedown and he was tired. The amount of energy you threw into that, it reminded me when Galor Bafando fought in the UFC against Charlie, whatever his name was, one of Conor McGregor's teammates, and he dumped him on his head, and you heard him literally key eye before he and dumped him. You heard the squeal from Barboza when you picked him up and slammed him, and I was like, that boy's got some energy still going into that 5th round. In the last minute, 5th round, the veteran hat came on. He put his veteran hat on, and that was it. He knew what he had to do to secure that round. So I just want to do a quick tip of my hat to Barboza for chef's kiss, beautiful performance last night. For all of you that are watching the other trash that was on TV, apparently it was competitive boxing. I have no interest in that. I was watching proper fighting. So yeah, I fully enjoyed that fight. I'm going to be dropping a video in a few days, well, probably in a week or two, about my thoughts on Fury versus Ngannou, which might be a little bit controversial, but yes, I shall be dropping my 2 cents on that in a few days, possibly a week from now, just before the fight on the 28th. But I just want to get into it about the middleweight division at the moment. And the middleweight division has had a bit of a shake-up, obviously coming up to next main UFC, I think it's 294. Obviously you had the late change with Volk stepping up, and I tip my hat to Volk, and obviously he's stepping up on short notice, but it's not like he hasn't been preparing. If anything, I reckon he was already in camp, preparing for the fact that Oliveira might drop out. It's a shame that the Bronx dropped out. I love the Bronx. I think he's such a beast. He's such an amazing, not just jiu-jitsu practitioner, but the way he's actually gone on and, you know, developed his stand-up over the years to the point that now he's dangerous in every facet of the game. I mean, we could argue that obviously the grappling exchange, once he gets on the floor, he's dangerous, but getting to the floor is a different thing. But if he can knock you down to the floor and then jump on top of you and go into guard, can't take it away from the man. So tele wrestling part out of that, I've been a fan of what the Bronx has been doing, but it's a shame he dropped out. But that leaves us with Makhachev versus Volk. If anyone saw the first match, a lot of people argue it was close. Some people gave it 3-2 to Makhachev, which obviously was the result in the end. It was a close fight, but what happened there was Volk displayed something a lot of people didn't see happen. So we weren't counting for him to do. He stayed in there for the 5 rounds, and he didn't just stay in there. He showed a good account of himself, you know, for better want of the term. And also on top of that, the technique that was displayed in that fight, that was pure mixed martial arts technique the whole way through. The precision, what was delivered from the grappling through to the stand-up, it was beautiful to watch. So I'm very intrigued for that matchup. But what I do want to quickly touch on is the middleweight division right now, as I mentioned before. So as we all saw a few weeks ago, the unthinkable happened, and Sean Strickland, you know, Mr. Well, he's not a MAGA hat wearing guy, but you know, Mr. America came out and he did the Philly shoulder, and he boxed. He did the straight down the pipe, he boxed, and he took away Adesanya's tools, kept the pressure on him, and now is the official, we're saying that UFC champion, which by all due respect, it should mean that he fights the next top contender, which, as much as I'm not a fan of him, though I can't take away his fighting acumen, is Duplessis. Or Duplessis, maybe you say his name, the South African guy. Or Dricus, whatever you want to say his name. So yeah, Dricus is deserving of that spot, but someone has stepped up on short notice to fight the boogeyman, Khamzat, if you want to call him that. I mean, after his last fight against Gilbert, I wouldn't call him the bogeyman anymore, but yeah, he's now got a new challenge. And it's not just, you know, someone stepped up on, it's not just anyone who stepped up on short notice. It's one of the best welterweight champions of all time in Kamaru Usman. This is an interesting fight for 2 reasons. Number one, we know what happened when Khamzat fought Gilbert, and we know what happened when Kamaru fought Gilbert. 2 very, very different performances. Obviously, you know, Khamzat brings a wrestling acumen that is very, very, you know, not seen that much in the UFC unless you look at someone like Habib or, you know, obviously Islam as well. So for a guy of his size to be able to wrestle the way he does, with the speed he does, and actually to maul people the way Khamzat does, it's interesting. But he's coming up against the wrestling acumen of Kamaru. And what Kamaru did, don't forget what Kamaru did to Tyron Woodley. You know, he literally dragged him around the cage. I mean, we could all argue that, you know, Woodley was past it at that point, whether or not he put his best performance, or as he said himself, he just wasn't there. It's an out-of-body experience for him. But Kamaru is an amazing wrestler. So that's point number one. I think that's going to negate Khamzat. The other point is Kamaru's striking under his coach has been nothing but, you know, improved over the years. I mean, you could argue that, and it's not even an argument really, up until the head kick in the first fight with Leon Edwards, the second fight with Leon Edwards, Kamaru was winning all 4 rounds. And it was that shock head kick that literally I jumped out of my seat when that happened. We didn't see coming, that took him off. And then the second fight, Kamaru said that, you know, it wasn't his best performance. He kind of was a lackluster performance for him. Whether that's the truth or not, we don't know. Whether it was the fear of getting knocked out again that made him more apprehensive to kind of bite down and move forward. But obviously he's riding 2 losses. That doesn't make him any less dangerous. He's only 2 losses to the current welterweight champion, which, you know, both went 5 rounds. One of them just happened to be that he got knocked out in the 5th when he was dominating the fight, and the second one was a decision. So it's not like he's riding 2 knockouts, he stepped up short notice. He's riding 2 welterweight championship fights into the 5th, and before that he had the most dominant run at welterweight. He's stepping up at middleweight. Now, I've not seen Kamaru fight at middleweight. I don't know if he's got any middleweights in middleweight fights on his actual stats, but from what I've seen, he hasn't. So it's going to be an interesting one to see if he actually performs better at middleweight without having to do the cut, because he's not a small guy. Kamaru walks around, I think it's like 210, probably wrong in that one. So he's not tiny, you know, and he always comes in absolutely vascular as hell when he fights. You can tell the weight cut is a bit on him. But to see him perform middleweight is going to be interesting, to find out if he's got more energy, to find out if he can keep the pace, to find out if he's a bit slower at middleweight, especially with the way he works his jab at the moment. That's going to be very, very interesting. So I think Khamzat and, you know, I was going to say Ngannou then, Khamzat and Kamaru is going to be a very, very interesting fight. I think Khamzat loses the fight. If it goes all 3 rounds, it's going to be decision for Kamaru, unless Khamzat's able to, you know, somehow maul him, which I don't see happening. If it's an early stoppage, they both have the potential to have an early stoppage, but after seeing how he fared against Gilbert with some real adversity, I don't see him stopping Kamaru. You know, Kamaru didn't get stopped in his second fight ever. He's only been stopped once when it came to the head kick, which that was a flush technique that Leon displayed. And I even shouted out to him, I was like, dude, I was like, beautiful. But yeah, that was a beautiful technique. So to see Kamaru get knocked out by Khamzat, I just don't see it happening. There's going to be a lot of grappling in this fight, unless they choose to stand like he did with Gilbert. I don't know. I mean, they could choose to just stand and trade for 3 rounds, which Kamaru can do. But yeah, I'd like to see Kamaru just go for a single or a double on this one and just work the ground and pound, which I haven't seen him do for a while because he's got some nasty elbows as well. That should be interesting. But where's the middleweights? Because let's look at this. Kamaru has never fought a middleweight. Yeah, he's not in the rankings at middleweight. Khamzat is not in the top 10 at middleweight. He's been, you know, jumping back and forth between welter and middleweight. So is this fair? Because the current narrative is that the winner of this fight will then go on to fight Sean Strickland. I mean, obviously that's the reason why Kamaru's taking the fight, because that's been the offer for him. So he's gone, look, if I beat him, I want the next shot at the title. And he's been reluctant to go up to middleweight because he didn't want to fight against Izzy. So I get that. But let's look at the top 5. You've got Jared Cannonier, 2-fight win streak, beat Vettori, deserving, especially after the work he's been putting in. Another crack. And I think he beat Strickland. You've got Rob. I think Rob is my favourite middleweight outside of Izzy. I think Rob beat Strickland. That's no offence to Strickland, but I think Rob beats him. Then you've got Dricus. I don't know why, but I think unless he rushes him in the first 2 rounds, I think Dricus loses on decision to that fight. I don't think the best Rob turned up in the. This is not making any excuses. I don't think the best Rob turned up in the Dricus fight. He seemed very apprehensive. He seemed kind of gun shy at certain points, and he got caught early on. So let's take nothing away from Dricus. Obviously, he's got his nose sorted out. He's able to have better cardio now because his airways are a lot better after the nose surgery that he had. So he definitely put on a dynamite performance with Rob. But I don't think the best Rob turned up that night. That's just from having watched the fight back and forth and a few times. But when it comes to the middleweight division, is it fair that Khamzat and why do I keep forgetting his freaking name? Oh my days, Kamaru. Is it fair that they get to jump them? You know, that's something that it shows 2 things. It shows the usual political fair when it comes to the UFC, that rankings have never really meant shit. We say they are, we say the best fight the best, and for the most part, the best do fight the best in the UFC as comparison to boxing, but the rankings get thrown out the window when it comes to stuff like this, because it's like, well, no, it doesn't matter if you're number 2 or 3 or 4 guy. We've got 2 guys that are not even ranked. We're giving them, because there's a lot of crowd and limelight behind Khamzat when he fights, because he's entertaining, because he just dominates it, again, apart from what he did with Gilbert. I think that got on 5 rounds, to be fair. I see Gilbert winning that fight if it went on for 5 rounds. But, was it 5 rounds? No, it was 3 rounds. I think it was 5 rounds. I think Gilbert would beat him, but because he came in strong in the last part. But yeah, I don't know if it's particularly fair that I love Kamaru. I think Kamaru, again, one of the best welterweights of all time. I'm a Khamzat fan, but I just don't think it's fair they get to jump everyone else in the division, because what does that leave Dricus? Example, again, not a fan of Dricus, but he's put in the work. Where does that leave him? That means he's got to sit on the sideline again, because he's not going to fight anyone else. He's already beat Robert Whittaker. Izzy's now taking a break from fighting, which I think is probably a good thing. He says he's taking a break so he can come back. But Izzy's on a break. He's beat Robert. I don't see him fighting Vettori. I don't see him fighting Paolo, who's obviously now injured. So is he just going to sit there? What happens to him? And then what happens to Rob? I mean, Rob's already fought Cannonier. He's already fought Vettori. He's beat both of those guys in the top 5. Does he rematch Strickus again? I don't see the UFC doing that. Where does that leave Roberts? I mean, there's no easy for him to fight. He won't get the champion because Kamaru's going to get that, or Khamzat's going to get that, probably Kamaru. He's beat Vettori. He's beat Cannonier. Where does it leave him in the top 5? That's your top 5. I don't see him fight anyone outside the top 5 because Rob's already said before he wants to fight top 5 guys and he's deserving of that. You beat Jack Manson as well, I think. If I'm right, you beat Jack Manson? I mean, Jack Manson's, I think it's 8 or 9 at this point. I don't see him fighting Jack Manson. Kelvin Gastelum, he's fought. Kelvin Gastelum's number 10. Like, who else is he going to fight at middleweight? So that puts Rob out of the picture for a while. Drickus is out of the picture. Then you've got Vettori and Cannonier. Well, they've fought each other. So they're not going to go back and fight again. Both of them have fought Rob. Both of them lost against Rob. I don't see him doing a rematch again. So it's a bit messy for the middleweights. I just don't understand what's going on. I mean, you could possibly do Rob and Costa once he gets fixed. Unless they give the winner of whoever wins this weekend and then fight Strickland. You give the winner of Strickland versus Kamaru or Strickland versus Khamzat to Costa. I don't know. But he's only writing I think he's on a 1 win, 2 losses for Paolo. So it's an interesting lay of the land at the moment for middleweights. It's really messy. And I don't like that when it comes to the rankings. You want to see, the top guys fight the top guys, and you don't want to see people just jump in a line. Even though, there's an argument they deserve it. I just think you have to work your way up in the division that you're in. It's not always fair if you jump into a division coming off of another division. I mean, yes, there's the argument of Volk is fighting Islam, but 2 things. Volk is the current featherweight champion. Volk has beaten, and, at the point of doing an Izzy and doing a second lap around featherweights, he's fought Islam and probably given him the most trouble that anyone's given him. So champion versus champion, that's going to sell, that's deserved. But when you've got someone that's coming off the back of 2 losses against someone else who, he's on I think it's a 6-7 fight win streak in Khamzat, but both are not ranked in middleweights, and they get to decide who's going to fight Strickland next. It don't sit well with me. I'm sorry, as a combat fan and a martial artist myself, it just doesn't sit particularly well with me. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the middleweight division. Obviously, we've got John Jones coming up with Stipe very soon, which I am really looking forward to. I've got a feeling Stipe does it. I don't know why, I just got this feeling Stipe pulls it out of the bag. As I mentioned before, I'm going to talk about the entertainment, if you want to call it that it is on Ngannou and Fury, and I've got a little bit of a controversial take on that, which again I'll let you guys know in a few weeks. But yeah, that's my take on UFC at the moment. Are you guys UFC fans that watch our channel? If you are, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the state of the middleweight division. Are you looking forward to UFC 294 of Volk versus Makhachev, and of now Khamzat versus Kamaru? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, been the GRP, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later, people.